Assalamu alaikum, dear students of class 12. In the last class, we were talking about sickle cell anemia as an example of pleiotropy. So far, we have discussed what is incomplete dominance, what is codominance, what is pleiotropy. Now, our today's topic is multiple alleles. Usually, one gene has two alternative forms. Usually, one gene has two alternative forms. One gene has two alternative forms. Called two alleles of the gene. Two alleles of the same gene. One gene has two alternative forms called two alleles of the same gene, as they represent, as they control the different expressions of the same trait, of the same trait or character. One gene has two alternative forms. One gene has two alternative forms, which are called alleles. Two alleles of the same gene, as they control the different expressions of the same trait. The two alleles alternative forms of the same gene, alleles of the same gene or factor are present or have same gene locus, in the same position on homologous chromosomes. Homologous chromosomes. For example, tallness and darkness. Tallness and dwarfness are two different alleles of the same trait. Are two different alleles of the same trait. Character is height. Inheritable form of the character is trait. If a trait has two contrasting forms, two alternative forms, we refer them alleles. In case of Mendelian factor, the Mendelian factor को ही हम जीन कहते हैं. यूजुअली हम देखते हैं एक मेंडेलियन फैक्टर के दो अल्टरनेटिव फॉर्म्स जो है उनको हम एलील्स कहते हैं. दे कंट्रोल द सेम कैरेक्टर, डिफरेंट traits of the same character, different forms of the same character, and they have same position on the homologous chromosomes. This is usual. One gene has two alleles. Two alternative forms. But certain genes have more than two alternative forms. Certain genes have more than two alternate forms or alleles. But certain genes have more than two alternate forms or alleles. Usual क्या है? One gene has two alleles. One Mendelian factor has two alleles. But certain genes have two alternate forms or alleles. Certain genes have two alternate. Certain genes have more than two. Certain genes have more than two alternate forms. Certain genes have more than two alternate forms or alleles. That occur at the same gene locus, on homologous chromosomes. Certain genes have more than two alternate forms or alleles that occur at the same gene locus on homologous chromosomes. And express different forms of the same trait. Certain genes have more than two. Usual क्या है? One gene has two alleles. Certain genes have more than two alternative forms. More than two alternate forms or alleles that occur at the same gene locus, that is having same position on homologous chromosomes, and express different phenotypic forms of the same trait. Different phenotypic forms of the same trait. Certain genes have more than two alternate forms or alleles that occur at the same gene locus on homologous chromosomes and express different phenotypic forms of the same trait. Such genes, forms of the same trait, are called multiple alleles. So simply we may say, in usual conditions, one gene has two alleles. But under certain circumstances, we come across with many examples in plant world, in the animal world, wherein one gene has more than two alternate forms, which are controlling the same character, which are actually representing the different phenotypic forms of the same character, same trait. Such different alternate forms of the same gene which control different phenotypic forms of the same trait are called multiple alleles. Genes may have more than two allelic forms. Such genes are multiple allelic genes, and transmission of multiple alleles from parents to offsprings is referred as multiple allelism. What are multiple alleles? Multiple alleles are more than two alternate forms of the same gene which control different traits, phenotypic traits of the same character, which express different phenotypic forms of the same trait. We refer them as multiple alleles. Multiple allele is not a usual phenomenon. It is deviation from usual condition. Usually, Mendelian gene or factor has two alternate forms, tall and dwarf, yellow and green, terminal and axial, smooth, constructive. These are two Mendelian alternate alleles of the same gene. But there are instances wherein we have one gene with many alleles. Multiple alleles means one gene with many alleles, or you may say more than two alleles. One gene with many alleles constitutes multiple alleles. One gene with many alleles, that is more than two. That is more than two alleles. One gene with more than two alleles constitutes multiple alleles. Transmission of inheritance of multiple alleles from parents to offsprings is referred as multiple allelism. Inheritance and transmission. Transmission or inheritance of multiple alleles from parents to offsprings. Represents offsprings is called multiple alleles. जिगरो अकिस जीनस हसा ज अल्टरनेटिव फार्म अकिस जीन अल्टरनेटिव फार्म गई तमिक अलील्स तेलिस अकिस जीनस ज अलील यह यूजुअल यह फिनोमिनन यह जनरलाइज कर मेंडेलियन जीनन मेंडेलियन फैक्टर मगर अस प्लांटो मज तो एनिमलो मज तम एग्जाम्पल्स नजर गसान यस अकिस जीनस अकि खोत ज्यादा अल्टरनेट फार्मस हेकन तम अल्टरनेट फार्म आसन thavan same gene locus, same position on the chromosome, homologous chromosome. तो बे आसन तिम अके कैरेक्टर च different phenotypic form represent कर. The different alleles of the different alleles of the same gene. Different alleles of the same gene. Different alleles of the same gene are its mutant forms. Different alleles of the same gene or it is mutant forms. आप कहोगे सर वो क्या होता है म्यूटेंट फॉर्म्स? एक्चुअली जो ओरिजिनल जीन है, जो ओरिजिनल फॉर्म है, दैट इज कॉल्ड वाइल्ड टाइप. व्हेन दैट wild type gets mutated, the new form formed is called it is mutant form. Out of many alleles, one is wild type and all others are mutants. Out of many alleles, one is wild type. Wild type, original, natural, and all other alleles, are it is mutant forms. How we form an allele? How an allele is formed? When the wild type gets mutated, a mutant form of the wild type is it is allele. But when we say many alleles, what happens? So I may say when a gene gets mutated number of times in different directions, it gives rise to many alleles. Multiple alleles arise. Multiple alleles arise when a gene gets mutated multiple alleles arise when a gene gets mutated number of times in different directions. गो कैसा मल्टीपल एलील अके जीन च दोय खो ज्यादा अल्टरनेटिव फॉर्म यम अकोई कैरेक्टर कंट्रोल करे अके कैरेक्टर च डिफरेंट फिनोटाइपिक फॉर्म कंट्रोल करे और यमन सेम जीन लोकस आस होमोलॉगस क्रोमोसोमन पे तुम छस वना मल्टीपल एलील तुम कत छी ओरिजिनल वन यूजन छु जीन ओरिजिनल फॉर्म तथ छस वना वाइल्ड टाइप नेचुरल टाइप व्हेन द नेचुरल type is being wild type is being mutated, the new forms which arise are it is alleles. Usually we say one gene has two alleles, but if a gene gets mutated number of times, instead of two alleles we may be having many alleles. So multiple alleles arise as a result of mutation of the genes. The origin of multiple alleles then occurs due to mutation of a gene number of times in different directions, so that different alternative forms are being produced. Different alternative forms of the same gene controlling the same character having the same position on homologous chromosomes are called multiple alleles. Yes, in a population there are many forms of multiple alleles. In a population there are many forms of multiple alleles. हाँ मैंने आपको बता दिया they have same gene locus on the homologous chromosomes. They have same gene locus on the homologous chromosomes. They do not undergo crossing over. There is absence of crossing over in multiple alleles. There is absence of crossing over. There is absence of crossing over in case of multiple alleles. There is absence of crossing over in case of multiple alleles. The mode of inheritance of multiple alleles is called multiple allelism. Multiple alleles do not show crossing over because they are on the same gene locus. They are not different genes. They are alternative forms of the same gene. अगर हसा अकिस जीनस दो खो ज्यादा फार्म आसे तिम आसन रिप्रेजेंट करन तमे जीनिक डिफरेंट फिनोटिपिक फॉर्म्स तुम हसा वनो मल्टीपल एलील्स उमन मल्टीपल एलीलन दरमियान छन क्रॉसिंग ओवर गसन के दे इंक्रीज द नंबर ऑफ पॉसिबल जीनोटाइप्स द मल्टीपल एलील्स increase number of possible genotypes. Multiple alleles increase the number of possible genotypes. Possible genotypes increase multiple alleles. Crossing over छन multiple alleles गसन. Multiple alleles एक characteristic different traits, phenotypic traits express कर. Multiple alleles same position on the homologous chromosome, same genetic locus, same gene locus. हाँ, ऐसा को इतने पढ़ बने. Population में है क्या? एक gene ची वारिया alternative forms ऐसे. Population when it go gene pool. In a gene pool, total set of genes in a population is called a gene pool. In a gene pool, there can be number of alleles of a gene. जब हम मल्टीपल एलील्स की बात करते हैं तो एक जीन की डिफरेंट अल्टरनेटिव फॉर्म्स या डिफरेंट एलील्स जीन पूल में हो सकते हैं. जीन पूल मीन्स टोटल नंबर ऑफ जीन्स इन ए पॉपुलेशन या ग्रुप ऑफ इंडिविजुअल्स शेयरिंग द कॉमन जीन. अकिस जीन पूलस मज हेकन अकि जीन च वारियाह अल्टरनेटिव फॉर्म आसित, but an individual has only two forms. But an individual has two forms only. आप बोलोगे सर अगर एक इंडिविजुअल में दो ही फॉर्म्स है तो ये मल्टीपल एलील्स कहां पे होते हैं? पॉपुलेशन में मल्टीपल एलील्स है. इन डिफरेंट इंडिविजुअल्स ऑफ द सेम स्पीशीज वी मे कम अक्रॉस विद मल्टीपल एलील्स, बट एन इंडिविजुअल इज डिप्लॉयड जस्ट टू सेट्स ऑफ क्रोमोसोम्स, सो ओनली टू एलील्स. In a gene pool there can be number of alleles of a gene, but an individual has always only two forms of multiple alleles. Two forms of alleles of a gene. अकिस पॉपुलेशन में हेकन अल्टरनेटिव फॉर्म अकि जीन डिफरेंट ट्रेट्स कर एक्सप्रेस, डिफरेंट फिनोटिपिक ट्रेट्स. मगर यम सात इंडिविजुअल वुचान अफ इंडिविजुअल थवन टू सेट्स ऑफ क्रोमोसोम्स, टू फैक्टर्स फॉर ईच कैरेक्टर, सो देयर आर टू एलील्स ऑफ ईच in case of a diploid neuron. But in case of haploid cell or a gamete, there is single allele for each character. In case of a haploid cell or a gamete. In case of a haploid cell or gamete, there is single allele for each character. Yes, despite the presence of many alleles in population, despite the presence of many alleles in gene pool, many alleles of a gene, an individual has, a diploid individual has only 2 alleles, and a gamete or a haploid cell has single copy, because gametes are haploid. They have single set of chromosomes, so single allele for each character. What are multiple alleles? Multiple alleles are more than 2 alternatives of the same gene present on homologous chromosomes, controlling the expression of different phenotypic traits of the same character, showing no crossing over. Inheritance of multiple alleles is called a multiple allelism. In the next lecture, inshallah, I will justify multiple allelism with different examples and give some characteristics of multiple alleles. Assalamu alaikum.